Jack McDade, great to meet you finally. Great to connect with you. I'm excited to chat.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Yeah, so like I was just telling you off air, I've been a fan of your work, especially recently with your new course called Radical Design. I just picked that up, started to dig into it. But
Nice.
man, Statamic is one of my favorite, just overall like favorite products these days that I'm
Thank
using
you.
all the time on all my websites. It's powering my website for Clarity Flow, the marketing
Mhm.
site. I just used it on another one. Um, so I want to get your whole story behind Statamic in this one, and then maybe in the next episode we'll dig into radical design.
Yeah, heck yeah. Thank you. Glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, it's always good to hear when someone doesn't hate the thing you made. Yeah.
Totally. So I mean, where are you based? You're down in Florida, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in the kind of the greater Daytona area on the beach. I mean, not on the beach, but in a beach town. Northeastern Florida.
That sounds pretty nice.
It's really
Are
nice.
you from there originally?
No, I grew up in upstate New York, lived there for like 35 years or whatever, and just
Oh,
got
cool.
sick of snow blowing the driveway and not feeling my toes. So
Tell me about it.
we
I'm
just
from
decided to
I'm
pull
from
the
New
trigger.
York, and I'm in Connecticut, and we've got about a foot of snow sitting out there right now. It's
Yep, yep.
good
I
times.
remember those
Where in New
times.
York were you from?
I was in like the Albany, Saratoga area,
Hmm.
like 3 hours north of New York City. Yeah, where no
You
one
know,
ever
it's
knows anything about.
I know upstate New York. It's a whole other country up
Like
there.
y'all know, there's more than just the city, right? It's like another.
Right.
It's basically like North Pennsylvania or like West Vermont or something. It's very
Pretty
different,
much.
but
It's so weird how they just pack in like millions and millions of people into New York City and Long Island, and then like everything north of there,
yeah, it's pretty
it's like
thin.
what, like a million and a half people.
That's it. The capital is like 500,000 people. It's like nothing. Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah.
It's funny because I remember Statamic from years ago. I remember like kind of seeing it around. I didn't start using it until just in the last 2 or 3 years, but
Sure.
I remember the old design of Statamic. Maybe I don't know if it was the original design. It was very like woodsy, and it
Yes.
reminded me of like that northeast kind of
Yep. It was a very like
vibe.
Adirondack,
Yep.
Jackson Hole sort of like manly man kind of vibe sort of thing, right? Like this mountain vibe.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's very different from. I guess it sort of matches up with your environment today, living down there in this like tropical environment a
Yeah,
little
you're
bit.
starting to see
Yeah.
more like palm trees in my design work. And I kind of really let my atmosphere and my surroundings really drive my like sense of aesthetic. And
Hmm.
I mean, that was also a strategic shift in the brand for Statamic because when we were doing topographic lines and mountains and all that stuff, like nobody was doing that. Everyone was obsessed with flat, clean, white, and black stuff. And
Yep.
we're like, oh, let's be different. Let's put the outdoors on our website. And everyone's like, what are you doing? And then everybody did it. Like everybody was doing that. So I went like retro 80s, 90s. And everyone was like, what are you doing? That's ridiculous. Well, now everybody does that. So,
Love it.
like you can ride the front of the wave or you can ignore everything. And yeah, I don't know what the right
Totally.
answer is, but always trying to
Yeah.
figure it out.
So are you the sole founder of Statamic, or you have partners on it?
I mean, the sole owner, yes, I did have a co-founder for the first couple of months, and then I had like a partner, like in the early days for a year. But yeah, now it's for the last 10 years, it's been me as the owner founder, but definitely not me as like the only guy working on it. It wouldn't be what it is today without my like fantastic team, and
Yeah.
so it is.
Yeah, I want to get into like all that.
Yeah, let's do it.
But I'm curious about your background. So are you like a designer, developer, all the above, front
Yeah,
end, back end? Where do you
pretty
come from
pretty
professionally?
full stacky. Yeah. I wanted to go to school for cinematography as a kid, so I enrolled in film school or applied for film school, and then met a girl and didn't go, and we got married and it all worked out. So like that's fine, but I did not get to go for film. Ended up doing the closest thing I could at the nearby college, which was marketing. I'm like, oh, marketing will get me into commercials. Commercials will be like video, and video is kind of like movies, and maybe I'll get there. Well, marketing and making commercials are like there's like the path from one to the other is those are different tracks. And
It's so I have a sort of similar path into this industry. I went to school for music production. I thought I was going to be working in like music
Yeah.
recording studios and producing albums. And I was actually getting into composing music for film and TV and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that would be my career. And I feel like a lot of people who maybe grew up in our time, in like the 90s and 80s
Yeah.
into 90s, where, that we're creative. We have sort of a technical brain, but like the internet wasn't quite around yet as like a career path until we got maybe a bit older.
Right.
Like I sort of pivoted into becoming a web designer pretty early in my career, in my 20s.
Yep.
When I realized like, oh, you got to get like super lucky, and like there's not a whole lot of money in the music industry. But this internet thing like is kind of taken off in the early 2000s. So kind of pivoted that like creative and technical brain into that whole world.
Exactly. Yeah. Kind of similar story here as well. It's like start to see the writing on the wall. Like I could keep working on this generic path that I'm on, or maybe I could like build some hard skills, and it was the right call. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you start your career doing that kind of stuff, like client work, or did you work for companies, or what did that look like?
In college, I was like, oh, you want a website? I could do that for you for like, I don't know, it's like $300. Is that reasonable? And they're like, sure. I'm like, oh, sweet. I had no idea what anything was worth in the day. And then just kind of went from marketing like into a marketing / coding job where they needed someone to do like email coding, which is like the hardest form of HTML, CSS ever. And then into like backend, just kept like needing an adjacent skill to supplement the team, and kept picking up, oh, I guess I'll learn PHP to figure that out. And then, the designers at this company are like terrible, and I have no idea how the CSS limitations were of the day. So I ended up learning how to design, and just like everything's, I mean, like most of the people, even if you go to college, like you have to self-teach you have to teach yourself like everything, right? You have to constantly learn and be able to learn. I was homeschooled. That was my life. It was just like essentially teaching myself whatever I needed to get through the thing, and ended up, becoming a pretty full stacky guy at the end of it all. I like to say,
I really think that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No.
You like to say?
I like to say that I'm a pretty good designer for a developer, and I'm a pretty good developer for a designer. Definitely not like the most specialized in either, but I get the job done.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I really think that that's like the core skill set that you need to develop sooner rather than later, is like the ability to just figure it out.
Yep.
100%. I remember working for my first kind of real job in this industry was working for a web agency in New York. I was hired as like a front end developer and then a project manager, and like a huge part of that job was like my manager just telling me like, well, we need this thing built for this like Coca-Cola website, and that other crazy website over there has done it. So you got to figure out how they did it. So
yep.
Like,
yeah. And you've got 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's your wife's birthday, the day it launches, and she's 9 months pregnant. You're like, cool. Love it.
Yep. Yeah. And there are no tools, like there's no Tailwind CSS. There's none of the tooling that we have today. It's like tables, and you got to make it work in IE6 and all
and there's a big Swift file in there. It's like mostly Shockwave and
right. Like Flash everywhere,
Yep. All right. I guess it's going to be some late nights, but that's how we did it. We kind of keep doing that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it does sound like you did the thing that I wish I had done sooner in my career, which was, because I came from mostly a design and front end background. And then it took me years before I even really ventured into any back end stuff. I worked with WordPress a lot and stuff, and I got familiar with PHP a bit through that, but like I didn't really get into like building full stack things until later in my career. But you got into it like pretty early, it sounds like.
I did. Yeah. I think I had ideas and no money. So the only way to make the thing exist would be to just do it all by myself. And so you're like, well, I'll follow some tutorials, right? I think I was tinkering with Rails back in the day, trying to build stuff with Expression Engine or whatever CMS like I could get my hands on that kind of like gave you some CRUD tools without having to write the code. And eventually like, this is kind of the wrong way to do this. Let me just actually learn how to write the code. So I was like dabbling in Rails because I had to be in a Rails environment for a client project. And then I met Taylor Otwell at like Peers Conf, which was like this little conference of like 200 people, and like they're all designery types. No one knew the PHP guys, so we just like hung out. Like, oh, tell me about this Laravel thing you're working on, like like in the early days.
Yeah. What year was this?
I think that was like 2013, 2014. And ended up just like, oh wow, it does migrations, it does this, that, and like working on all the things that I thought only Rails did. I'm like, well, I already know some PHP. Let me come back to that world, and the rest has been history. Just like, I am not the best application architect, but anytime I needed something and didn't have somebody, there was always something by Laracast or Matt Stoffer. There's always some resource out there to close the gap until I actually could hire people. And yeah, it's been no regrets. Like, my career path has been like never what I expected or planned, but like looking back, I wouldn't change any of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to get into Statamic. So like
Yes.
what's the pathway to Statamic? When did that start? How did it start? Why did it start?
You got it. So it started like, we launched 1.0 in like the spring of 2012. So it's pretty much 12 years old now. So we're old, like as far as like web software goes. Like, we've been around.
You're like a young teenager.
Yeah, Stripe didn't exist. Instagram wasn't here yet. Like, we've been around. But it didn't grow or evolve that fast because it was a side project. And that was, if I could change anything in my career, and I still wouldn't, but like that would probably be the most likely thing. Knowing what I know now, I would have begged, borrowed, stealed, or pulled more all-nighters to scrape together money and have a bigger team quicker. Because I think we were onto something, but the demand and the interest like peaked, and we couldn't keep up on the technical side, like trying to build and support it. But it all worked out eventually. But the reason I built it in the first place is because as a one-man shop, or maybe 1.5-man shop, if I could bring someone on for a project, it's like trying to manage clients and their live websites and the changes that they need being done. You're like, hey, oh, you want a blog added to your site? I can add that, but you need to not edit the site for like a week so that I can, like, don't change the database, because by the time I'm done building it, like they're going to be out of sync, and I'm going to have to start it, like move it down again and copy and paste and like re-upload it and all that stuff. I'm like, why can't this is just text content that's preventing me from updating, keeping a site up to date, right? Yeah. And I'm like, what if we could just put all that text content in Git and like forget about the database and just version control it all, so they can make changes and I can make changes, and then I just do git pull rebase, and boom, like the site's up and running. So that was the proof of concept was, could we run a site without a database, just like parsing Markdown and YAML files? Like Jekyll's doing it. I mean, I know there's like a command line tool for that. But
yeah, I was going to say like at that time, 2011, 2012, I guess Jekyll was around, like the flat.
Yep.
File, like static site.
Like the static site generator was a concept, but
it's not what it was today. Like what it is today, where it's like everyone's sort of doing that, or everyone in our little circles do it. But
static site generator, there's a lot of tools for that. There's not as many full-blown CMS with a control panel where it actually runs on the flat files. But yeah, there was like this little CMS called Stacy that I was trying, like maybe that would work for me, and it just like didn't do enough. And like I emailed like the founder, and he never got back to me. Like, hey, can I like work on this and add some features? And like never heard back. So I'm like, all right, I'll just do it. I'll just make it. Yeah. So that's how it came to exist.
So, all right, let's sort of like jump around in the story a little bit. I want to come back to the origin story, especially how you sort of bootstrapped and grew it slowly at first, and then getting into it. But just for anyone who's not super familiar with Statamic, I mean, the way that I see it today, and what really clicked for me when I for a while, a couple of years ago, I was like looking for excuses to use Statamic on something, and then I did a redesign of the Clarity Flow site. I was like, yes, we're going to go with Statamic. What I love about it is, because I was a longtime WordPress user for like 10 plus years, it built entire businesses on WordPress, and then but I just got more and more frustrated with it, with like the bloat and the community and like, and just the slowness of it all and all that. And so that's what drove me to static sites. Then I started using Jekyll on some sites and looking for some Rails based stuff. And then what frustrated me with those was like, yes, I get to get my hands dirty on everything and design everything pixel perfect, Tailwind, like all the stuff that I want to do.
Yep.
But as soon as I need to hand it off to a writer or a VA or a marketer,
yep,
they can't commit code in the terminal or anything like that. Like
preach it.
They need
That's
to
exactly the problem.
They need an interface, and none of these static sites have an interface. And like Statamic to me was like the first one that really gave me like the best of both worlds. Like I can get my hands dirty, and it's got a like a great interface to hand off to a writer, you know?
Yeah. That was our goal. That was the dream. And it's real. It's here. You could use it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
So like this,
yeah.
And especially like marketing and positioning it sort of against WordPress, because they're the huge.
Yeah. I mean, they're the, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, right? It's kind of, everyone's like, oh, if I could just get 1% of the WordPress market, I can be a billionaire or whatever, which is I mean, it's probably true. But it's also unrealistic. They're just the ecosystem of WordPress. We can't just replace it. Like, you can't just like import your whole WordPress world into Statamic. Like, we need to carve out the people who, like you, wanted to have like that pixel perfect or that unique bespoke front end where they do control the HTML and the CSS, and they're worried about your Lighthouse score and your optimization and trying to like crunch the things that matter, but then also let a non-technical user actually edit the content and in a way that isn't going to break all that hard work, right?
Yeah. For sure.
You can take that approach in WordPress. I know there are a number of like agencies, and I know a lot of people personally who build some really amazing stuff in WordPress. If you're using advanced custom fields and like the right builders and the right tools, like you can get there, but you can only turn off so much stuff. You log into a WordPress and you're like, I don't know what to edit. Let's just click, here's a homepage, and start, putting some stuff in, and it shows up in the sidebar because like the content area is like reused as like a widget thing. And, you start to like have to warp and bend it into a shape it wasn't designed to be in.
Yeah.
Statamic just lets
you start adding these plugins and like that ecosystem is, I know you have an add-ons marketplace. I want to get into that, but like, with WordPress, like you go into a site and there's like all these like kind of bloat extra stuff that these plugins are adding. So
yes. And colliding with each other, and like each one imports a different version of jQuery, and like all this kind of stuff, right? And you're loading 19 megabytes of like duplicated CSS just to like run a slider and a comment form or something.
For sure. And then the sheer size of it, like you can see it in the WordPress admin interface. I guess I heard that they're redesigning it now, but
sure, they're never going to not.
I've heard that before. I don't know, but but you could see how like it's such a huge piece of software that so many people in the world use that they can't just like wholesale change things and optimize things the way that it should be.
Yeah.
But like reading like the copy on your site, I still think it's smart to like position against WordPress the way that you do, because it's like it's a static site generator, so you can compare it to those, but the more use cases, like if you're coming from WordPress and you need to give like a CMS to a team member, it's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it is a hard thing to sell all of its capabilities. That's one of the big challenges I'm working on right now, because the further into it you get, the more you realize like, holy crap, it can do that. And you're like, yeah, I know. I'm trying to figure out how to tell people it can do that. I'm working on it, telling people one-on-one, or we've got a video that nobody watches, or, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to educate the full footprint of like a robust and mature software platform. Like I'm sure every big company has like the same challenges, but like,
how do you think about that? I mean, like these days, what is, how do you think about marketing and growing and just letting more people know that Statamic exists? I mean, when I think about running a CMS company, I just think of like that's one of like the top 3 most like competitive spaces to be in.
How dare I think I could do this?
But I also think it's the type of product that like every full stack designer developer has tried to build in one form or another at some point in their career. And you've done it successfully. Obviously, so like,
and you
the to-do list, and then the CMS, the project management app,
Yep, exactly. Because like, I don't want to pay $50 a month for that. And to be fair, like you could build your own CMS that works for your own use case, like pretty quickly in a weekend, you can have something that works. But like as soon as you need to do something it doesn't do, oh, there goes a day trying to build that extra feature. And then you try to hand it off and they're like, oh, can it do this? And like, oh, there goes a week. And then 3 years later, you haven't updated it. And that version of PHP or Ruby or Rails or Go or whatever you're using, like doesn't run anymore. So now there goes a month. And before you know it, you've got a quote legacy CMS that you have to replace with something else. Right. And, meanwhile, like the only difference between that CMS and Statamic is we just didn't stop and we just kept working on it. Every week we ship 2-3 releases of 20, 30, 40 bug fixes, features, enhancements. We just like keep going. And that's, turns out it adds up to a lot of good stuff if you just don't quit.
Yeah. What does your team look like these days?
We've got me plus 4 full-timers and a part-timer.
Okay.
Yeah. So
nice. Mostly like developers, front end, back end.
Yeah, all developers. Yep. I'm like the only like person who does like design and writing and business stuff. We have Joshua does some marketing things and helps me out on the marketing and support side. But yeah, I mean, everybody on the team is a developer, can write PHP, JavaScript, Vue.js, like all that stuff, Laravel. So nice. Yeah, it's a pretty highly technical team.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say again, like the writing, especially in the documentation, I feel like that's one of the best parts of it. I mean, it's like entertaining to literally read your support docs,
Thank you.
Which is like kind of the case with all of your stuff, which is awesome. But it has that same quality as like Tailwind CSS, where the docs are just so good, and you can just tell like so much thought and love has been poured into that. I think for any developer tool of any type, like make it easier for a new user to start using it productively and putting that effort into examples and tutorials and docs is huge.
That is never time wasted. Yeah.
Yeah.
It always will give you returns. And if you can think long-term focused, not worried about like, how do I make another $1,000 this week? If you can think long-term, like how can we help 1,000 users over the next 10 years or whatever, focusing on new user training, onboarding, like developer experience, that stuff pays off. Because as soon as a developer decides to try to learn your thing and doesn't hit a roadblock in the first 10 minutes, like so many times when you're using a product, like, ooh, oh, and then they giggle like, oh, that was kind of funny. There's like a Ron Swanson reference in the docs, and like, right. Whatever, right? There's like all these little pop culture references and jokes, and I never do foo, bar, baz in the code examples. It's always some sort of like 90s, 80s pop reference, DJ Jazzy Jeff, Will Smith, whatever, right? It just trying to make it all interesting. So I get you to just scroll a little bit more and read a little bit more, learn a little bit more. And if you learn enough, turns out, well, now you know Statamic and you might as well use it because you spent the time to learn it. So I'm just trying to not necessarily trick people, but I'm trying to trick people into learning it against their will, because oftentimes people are trying to find an excuse to not use something. Like, oh, I got to find a new CMS. And like this, here's 10. Like, ooh, roadblock, forget it. We'll rule that one out. Ooh, roadblock, we'll rule that one out. And I don't want to get ruled out because it's hard to learn. So
I this year in 2024, from a marketing perspective for my SaaS Clarity Flow, I did come to the point where I sort of just got like frustrated, and I feel like I spent way too much time and money on like these marketing tactics when I should have been pouring that effort into just customer success. And I literally just hired a customer success person, and like this year it's all about like helping not only just convert more trials to users, but like helping them really be successful, so that they talk about us, so that they recommend us, and taking those learnings and putting them into docs and videos and tutorials and stuff. I just feel like that's genuinely helpful to our best users, but that's like the best kind of marketing that there is, because still to this day, it's like word of mouth, and it's like people find it because other people are using it, and it's not fast growth, but it's like that's the only consistent thing, is like make the product and the help good, and it'll sort of slowly grow.
Yeah, that's one of those things I don't think people realize, is that quote, like popular marketing tactics, paid ads, all that stuff, that's arithmetic growth. Like assuming everything's working properly and your app or SaaS doesn't suck, you pour dollars and they return at like a consistent rate if everything's working properly, and you just kind of like keep going up and to the right at whatever angle. If you forget all that and you focus on relationship building with the people who do use your product, it's exponential. It starts very small. It's like with like 3 people, and that hockey stick, like it's very low. The number stays really low for a long time and it's stressful. But like at some point, your numbers start to like multiply so fast that your line almost starts going straight up. And you just have to be willing to wait. Like, I mean, who can say exactly, but 3 years, 5 years, 7, it was like 7 years, 8 years in our case before it really started to pay off. But when it did, it was so much better because the people that use Statamic like love it. They love it. They're not like reluctantly using it because they're locked in or anything like that. They love it.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear me talking about it. Like it's my go-to on every site that I'm doing now. You know, it's great. I mean, so let's use that to go back in your story. I mean, you said like it took you a bunch of years of that like slow, just kind of like watering that plant, making it a little bit better, right? Like, tell me about that time. Like, how did you make it work for you? Like financially, as a business, sustaining, like, were you doing other projects? And
Yep. That's how we did it. It was, for a while, it was like me and Jason, who's still working for me. He's been like working for like 9 or 10 years now. It was me and him, and then sometimes a part-timer. And we were also an agency. I had an agency called Wilderborn. We were taking client projects, and it was like, here, Statamic is making, I don't know, say like $4,000, $5,000 a month, like not enough to pay 2.5 people, right? So like whatever that gap was, I would go out and land a project, do some design work, or we would have to tackle something. We built some interesting SaaS apps for other people, and like that was fun work at the time, but it wasn't what we really wanted to be doing. It was like, let's get this done so that we can get back and build that feature into Statamic that we're really dreaming about. And it was the problem I had is we didn't have anybody full time on Statamic. It was like I would land a project and we have to take me and Jason and like bring someone else in or whatever to get this thing done and then get back to it. I decided one day, like, let's put Jason on it. Let's just put Jason on Statamic full time. I will find someone else to write the PHP I can't, and until this works. And like, you can go back in our sales graphs, you can see the month that happened. Like as soon as there was a full-time person on it, like the angle shifted, and it was consistent. So
do you think that was a function of like literally just like releasing updates, releasing features?
Yeah, I think that was like people who were on the fence, like, I can't quite tell if Statamic's going to make it. I can't, like, it's like 3 months between major releases. There's like a bug fix every couple of weeks. It's like, I can't quite tell. I ask a support question. It takes like a week to get a reply. Like, are they real? Are there humans? Is it abandoned? Now, there's huge commit activity every day. There's pull requests being like commented on every day. There's, 20, 30 support requests a day. It's different. And we're trying, we get back to most people within the day, within the hour, sometimes within 5 minutes. You can feel that it's like a machine that's like working now. And that perception gives people, okay, this is a real company. Like, I know maybe I hit a bug or I don't understand something, but they're going to get an answer to me. I'm not going to be stuck for more than a day. Like after a week of being stuck, 2 weeks of being stuck, you're like, I need to go somewhere else. Yeah,
for sure. And I think it's like, that's like the trade-off when you're doing a product that is like so essential to your customers. Like it's literally running their whole business's website, right? So like they have to sort of trust that there's a real company behind it. And that goes the same for like any SaaS product that's like essential, and if it's not essential, like you might have that like fast adoption, fast usage, but it's also fast to churn because they could just, but essential is like
more interchangeable.
I'm not gonna leave, Yeah.
Oh, I can import my to-dos anywhere, right? I can track my time anywhere. I can interchange CI, like continuous integration systems, like pretty quickly. Like those things are very interchangeable. There is a certain amount of implicit lock-in on a CMS. Like I've built our company's website. We built our clients' websites on this. To switch off will cost us, at the very least, a chunk of time. And
Right,
we
right.
don't take that lightly. Like we realize, people have relied on us, and we need to make sure that they don't get burned because of that.
For sure. How about
Yeah.
so any other like big milestones that you can look back on, like things really took a like shifted, like started
Yeah.
to grow more rapidly when this happened or that happened?
Yeah, there was a big shift in, I think it was 2017, when I got an email from a company I'd never heard of at the time because I'm American, Der Spiegel, which is like a massive German news company. They're like the New York Times of Germany and
Hmm.
really well known throughout Europe, but I'd never heard of them. And so I got an email like, hey, we're using Statamic, and we've got to do some pretty cool stuff. We'd like to show you what we've been able to do with it and see if maybe we can collaborate on some new features and stuff. I'm like, sounded fake, almost didn't reply. I Googled them. I'm like, hot dog, one of the top like 60 biggest sites on the internet, et cetera. I'm like, all right, let's get on this call. Like a couple weeks later, I was in Hamburg, Germany, like walking around this huge newsroom building, looking in the windows, and all the writers are like logged into Statamic, and they're just like
No
writing
way.
all these articles. And up until this point, like I had never like met someone in the real world who used Statamic and then found it was like my friends would use it, right? And like Twitter buddies would use it. I already knew them. They were all like people who from the previous like pre-Statamic world.
Hmm.
Here I am in Europe, in Germany, like walking around, and they're like, yeah, we've built, we've got a million entries and like 3 million assets. I'm like, how? It's a flat
Right.
file. You can't put that many files in a folder. How did you do it?
Yeah.
And they showed us what they did, how they like kind of hijacked one of our data layers and like pulled in an API and still store everything as files, but like it doesn't read from the files. And then a light bulb went off. We're like, oh my God, we could like make that the way it works. That could be like the thing. And
Incredible.
so like that was the shift from Statamic 2 to Statamic 3 was confidence that, okay, holy crap, we built a user experience that works on a global newsroom scale. We have to leverage this somehow. We have to be able to use that information, use like as a use case. And even if we don't use it as marketing, because it's not like something that anybody could just do, at least in Statamic 2, maybe
It just
we
adds
can
like the
get
level
there.
of like credibility.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's the case study, the credibility piece with sort of a big customer like that, but like you're saying, like that also drove Statamic 2 to Statamic 3. Like it transformed the product too.
Yes.
And it still gets back to like it's the product. It's
the product.
It just,
Yeah. And it was the confidence that we were always at the time like, did we build ourselves into a box that had like a ceiling that we can't get past? Like, is there a limit to what you can do with a flat file CMS? And it unlocked that limit for us, allowed us to think about Statamic on a much broader use case, give us confidence that it could be, we can go confidently tell people, yeah, it scales. Like, granted, right now it doesn't, like it's going to take a lot more work than it will in a little while when we actually build this into core, but it gave us confidence and like of a roadmap into where the product could go. And we were thinking like, maybe build a new field type in a WYSIWYG thing, and like these kind of like average features, and all of a sudden we had like this feature set that was
it's like what if the world changes,
Yeah. So like that's how it works now, and it's way better.
So, I mean, before we wrap up on this part of it, I wanted to get into the add-ons marketplace.
Yeah.
Obviously it makes a ton of sense for this type of product to have, I guess, you call them add-ons, where I guess Statamic creates some, and then there are third-party developers who create and sell their own add-ons.
Correct.
When did that whole piece of the ecosystem kind of come into play for you guys?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that came like after the first couple of years, like 2015, maybe 2016, we launched the add-on marketplace. And for a long time, it was like free stuff. It was like stuff that people added on for themselves and then just like put out there and let it sit there. And it wasn't until version 3 when Statamic was built on Laravel, or like as a Laravel package, so you could install it into existing Laravel apps. And like all the add-ons they were really just composer packages for PHP that were also, kind of uniquely designed for the Statamic ecosystem. And then we had a marketplace and a license check so that people could actually make a little bit of money on that idea to help support it. And that's when adoption started to go up. More add-ons were starting to get created. People were realizing, oh, I could actually make like a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 a month, like on these add-ons. And it's the biggest it's ever been now, and it continues to grow. We have starter kits as well, which is kind of like a WordPress theme, but with the idea is you start with it and then you modify it. So it scaffolds out all your HTML, your CSS, your blueprints, all your field sets, like all that stuff is all like in a can ready for you to go. But there's no update button for that. The idea is now you hack apart, change the colors, drop a different logo in, you start to move things around. Like this gets you 85, 90% of the way towards the thing you're building. Awesome. And those are starting to take off as well too, especially the more like utilitarian ones where they're kind of style agnostic, but it's a lot of pre-built components. Like they've got a barred field with 60 blocks pre-built, and you can drop it in, style them however you want, and bam, you've got a website.
I could totally see how I think I've done 2 or 3 sites with Statamic now, and like I could see all the building out the blueprints and the forms and the field types and stuff, like doing that again and again. It's like, I should just like export this as my own little starter kit and use it on my sites.
And you can take an existing site, run PHP, please, starter kit, export, like pass the list of files you want, boom, it'll dump it into a new repo, and then you can use that to start a new site. So like it is really easy to do.
Probably a lot easier than like my split screen, like copy this over to here. Like
yes. In this case, I promise you, if you spend 15 minutes to learn how that works, you will save like hours over the next year. Yeah.
Right. Totally. So like how significant for you is this add-ons marketplace to the whole business? So, and I can see that working in a number of different ways, right? There's the revenue piece, the marketing piece. I'm wondering if it's like the fact that there are add-ons makes it a better sell for Statamic as a whole. Like, yes, you can do that with Statamic because it has these key add-ons.
Yeah,
but then there's like the other way too. I'm wondering if like any of the add-on sellers have their own marketing engines where they're selling their add-ons, and that drives traffic to Statamic.
That's true. Yeah, it's like a triple-headed market. I would say currently in terms of revenue, it isn't a game changer for us. While it might be for a couple of the add-on or starter kit developers who have really popular add-ons, like it could be a game changer for them. But the effect it has on the ecosystem, showing that Statamic has a vibrant community of building useful tools, integrating third-party platforms, and all of that is part of the overall Statamic story. When you are looking at a new platform, evaluating it from like, can we commit to this? Will we be stuck? Will we have to build lots of custom stuff? Because WordPress has 97 million plugins and Statamic has 340. Are they 340 useful ones, or is it all that? It's you can't one-to-one it. The way Statamic works is so different, where like 3/4 of those WordPress plugins, you don't even need them. Like they're not even useful. Like Statamic just does that stuff out of the box, right? Like with 2 lines of code or whatever. Yeah. So
do you ever run into like the platform risk for the add-on creator? Like somebody created a thing, but that's sort of in the roadmap for Statamic core.
Yeah, that's a tricky dance that I think every company with a third-party app store platform sort of thing has to dance. Is you don't want to Sherlock your customers' hard work, right? You don't want to just like say, oh, you built that, that's a great deal, put it in core, make it free, now you don't sell it anymore, right? So we tried early on to really define the footprint that Statamic needs to be, so that everything else could obviously be an add-on. And I'd say we like probably 95% of the way got it to that point. Some SEO stuff, some, social media images, like metadata, like there's some stuff in that area that's kind of like vague. There's some form stuff maybe. Don't want to get into the weeds here, but
sure.
We do try to avoid just stomping over people's work. So in an effort to do that, sometimes I've reached out and like, hey, your add-on is like exactly what we want to do in core. Can we pull that in? Can we buy that from you? What would you like to do? Would you like some free licenses or, whatever? Try to find like an agreement where they win and we win and everybody wins. Yeah. It doesn't always work. Sometimes like, no, then we kind of need the revenue. And you're like, okay, cool. We'll kind of tweak the way we're thinking about it so that your add-on like still has viability and blah blah blah. So we try to play nice. And the other thing we've done, which is kind of unique, is we created kind of what we call second party add-ons. We call them the Rad Pack. So like the Rad Pack is a seller or like a GitHub organization of first party supported third party add-ons, which means like if there's a add-on built by another team or other individuals, sometimes people aren't they don't want their company to rely on one add-on as the only package by a PHP developer they've never heard of, and like have that be like the hinge pin of their business plan, right? So like
Statamic will like support it basically, or
exactly.
Like offer
so the Rad Pack, any Rad Pack add-on, if that original developer leaves, or it will never be abandoned. We'll find someone else. We'll pay someone. We'll do it ourselves. We'll be involved to make sure that the roadmap for that add-on is in the best interest of everybody. And we don't have too many of them because of that. We're trying to be careful about it. But GitHub sponsorships, that money goes towards saying thank you to those third like Rad Pack developers, and we just take that money and like each month like send it to somebody and like give them like a thank you for that effort. Yeah,
very cool. I mean, there's so many different things I want to get into because you're doing so many interesting things. Like, I definitely want to get into radical design. Before we get there, I just got to say this flat camp thing looks so cool.
Yes, it is so cool, Brian. You should come.
I'm such a huge fan of small, tiny conferences and retreats like this. I've been doing one with a couple of buddies called Big Snow Tiny Conf, where we go skiing and snowboarding and get a house and talk business for a couple of days. So you're doing one coming up in Rome.
Yes, in June. Yep.
Nice.
This is our second one. We did one last year. This is our second one. And yeah, it's like 55. We have room for 55 people or 55 rooms. So like we could push it up to 100. And if everyone wants to sleep with somebody they don't know in a bed, probably ain't going to happen. And we'll have 3 nights and, like 4 days, 3 nights. And everything's covered, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, private chef, events, like beer, wine, bar, like all that stuff. Everything's included from the second you walk in to the second you leave. And it just gives us an opportunity as a community just to hang out, like talk as much technical stuff, as much shop, as much business, or just get to know each other. And
I just love this model overall.
Right, you said you've done it, big mountain, tiny snow, or whatever it was.
Big Snow, Tiny Comp. We've been doing that for 10 years, and that's just like 12, 13 of us in an Airbnb. Okay. I've also gone to Chris Lemma's Cabo Press, which is sort of like this. It's like 50 people in an all-inclusive Mexico resort, and it's like, getting away from like the big ballroom with a speaker and all that, and just hanging out with like-minded folks. Like, I assume you're doing some sort of like curation of like apply like work. Like, how do you think about? Because I think a big part of it is like getting the right attendees there. And discussions going.
That's definitely part of it. Like, there's only so much we can control. I don't know everybody. How am I gonna? I don't want to have one-on-one interviews and all of that. We try to get seed it with like, hey, like you got to come, like get the right base. We're all going to be here. The whole core team's going to be there. Come hang out with us. But I think the fact that it is Statamic specific is like filters out just people who want to hang out with me or like another person. I think
and you've got those like common. You're doing similar type of work. You're in this industry,
Yeah. And if you're going to fly internationally, or this one's in Europe, so it was to make it easier for people in Europe, like $200 flight. It's a whole lot cheaper than flying across the pond and coming over here. But yeah, I think it's like 1,500 or 1,600 euros for the 3 days, which honestly, like you get a lot of value out of that. You want to hang out with the company who builds and supports the thing your company relies on for like 3 days. Ask them anything you want, get to know them, and like bring your feature requests, bring whatever, like let's grab a laptop and like hack on it and like with a glass of wine by the pool. Like, sounds awesome, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So there's still like 20 or 23 rooms left. So we're not sold out yet. So if you're interested and you like Statamic and you haven't heard of this, flatcamp.com.
Yeah. I might need to shift things around for June and make my way out there.
Do it. Brian, do it. I'll pile the FOMO up so high you'll have to come.
Right. Sounds good. Well,
I was literally in tears when the buses pulled away last year. I was actually like ugly crying because it was so good.
I know. Every time I do one of these, it's like, all right, I'm like, while I'm there on my way home, I'm like planning out the next one. Like, where am I going next? You know?
Yep.
I love it.
Exactly.
I mean, again, there's so much that we can cover. I think we covered a lot in this first thing. I think in one more short episode, I want to get into your new thing, radical design. So I'm gonna
let's do it.